everybody. Welcome. It is Shadoe at Night for Thursday, July the 24th, 2025. On the show tonight, our guest is author Ray McGinnis. He is the guy who wrote this book right here. It's called Unjustified, and he joins us from his quarters, his hotel room in Ottawa, in just a few minutes. He was covering the Tamara Lich, Chris Barber sentencing hearing these past couple of days. We understand it's wrapped up now. Some great reporting by Right Blend out there. He's been dropping some videos on all the usual social platforms. So if you want to go and check out his detailed synopsis of everything that's happened these past couple of days, you're more than welcome to do that. He would love for you to do that as well. Ray is also a former news correspondent. Actually, we shouldn't say former because that's what he's been doing these past couple of days, but he's worked for pretty much every corporate media outlet in the country, in foreign countries. We're going to hear a little bit about that, about how he came to attend the Freedom Convoy 2022 and the writing of the book Unjustified, which I have an autographed copy of, as you can see right here. Ray joins the show in just a couple of minutes. Hello, Jonathan, watching on YouTube tonight from Newcomerstown, Ohio. Michael is watching in Brampton. Hello, Tony, watching on X in Calgary. Carla is in Calgary, watching on Facebook. Hello, Ruby. Mireille is watching in Lacombe. Hello, Patricia in Grimsby. Kathy is watching in Bothwell, Ontario. Lulu, Giselle, Kim is watching from the Austin Threshermen's Reunion and Stampede. I guess that's in Austin, Manitoba. Well, I hope you're having a good time there, Kim. Shelley is watching in the Okanagan. Hello, Edie, Laura, Angela, Tracy. Eddie's watching in Stonewall. Hello, Lance, watching tonight. Ellen is watching on Vancouver Island. Christine's in Enola. Regina's watching in Arizona tonight. Wherever you happen to be watching from, whatever platform you're watching on, please don't forget to give us a like and a share. It really helps the viewership of this show. We need more eyes and ears on this. And of course, if people like what they see, they'll share it themselves. And that way we gain a massive audience as opposed to the medium audience that we currently enjoy. Hang on. Ray McGinnis is going to join us in just a second here on Shadoe at Night Live in 30 seconds time. Hello, Ray. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Shadoe.
How are things?
Things are good. I'm here in Ottawa after being at a family reunion and cousin's birthday party in Winnipeg, and the dates just lined up so I could come out here to Ottawa to sit in the courtroom during the sentencing hearing.
Yeah, I want to get to that in just a couple of minutes. Did I tell you? I think I may have told you that Ray and I went for lunch at the Hotel Fort Garry at downtown Winnipeg. And not a lot of crime around that particular spot for some reason. Everywhere else downtown, it's like fend for yourself. But down around that hotel, there seems to be a halo around it. Anyway, as I was walking out, I bumped square into John Travolta. Did I tell you that?
You did. You did.
Oh, yeah. Shorter than I thought.
Did he tell you, was he staying alive?
Yeah. No, I said, hey, man, sorry about that. And then he said, yeah, no, that's all right. I continued on for a half a block, and I thought, that's I know that face. That was John Travolta, wasn't it? There was a couple walking behind me who were coming out of the hotel as well. And I said, was that John Travolta? And they said, yeah, we hear he's filming a movie in town. I went, oh, okay, well, interesting. And then a couple of friends of mine said, should you mention that? I mean, he's kind of rumored to be this and that and the other. And I said, yeah, maybe not. But you know what? I just thought it was kind of an interesting story. And it was a pleasure meeting you finally face to face, first at the ostrich farm in British Columbia and then this past weekend. Let's talk about the ostrich farm first, Ray, and your impression of what was happening that weekend. That was the Farm Aid Canada weekend. So I drove up from Vancouver, where I live, to see the farm. My second trip since I went up there in late May, and got to see the beautiful ostriches that are thankfully all still alive. And I brought about 25 copies of my book, which gave to the farm owners so they can auction it off sometime to
to sell, to raise money for their legal expenses. And I mean, just being there, I mean, it was all the whole Farm Aid event was pulled together really quickly.
Yeah.
And like four weeks notice. And when I learned about it from Maggie Hope Braun, who was there with you, I think at the time, visiting the farm, I looked at my calendar. Thought, it's an open weekend. I'll book the tickets to go to the weekend. And so there were some amazing acts, and I want to pull one of them actually, Shadoe, in beside me right now, because one of the people who was performing, some of your viewers might recognize if they can just sort of peek in.
Hi.
Oh.
How's it going?
Tamara, how you doing, love?
Oh, great. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you also. Hey, how you doing after these last couple of days? You feeling recharged? Everything's good?
Well, yeah, it's good. I mean, I still feel pretty positive, but I mean, that's just who I am. It is what it is. And like I've always said, we just continue to roll through the punches. It was a long couple days, of course, but we got through it. I'm disappointed that the sentencing isn't going to happen until October the 7th, but I mean, I guess what's 2.5 more months, right?
I'm just wondering why it's taken so long for this entire thing. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got a theory on it, but do you think the judge really needs that kind of time?
Well, what it's really coming down to, Shadoe, is that obviously because of the pandemic, there's a backlog in the court system. So it's scheduling. And we heard, from Miss Magus, Chris's lawyer today, like her schedule is jam-packed. She just has no time until then. And as a matter of fact, she did say today that she was going to have to rearrange some other court hearings to make October the 7th even happen.
And Chris has got his forfeiture hearing next month. I think September the
12th.
12th, right?
Yeah,
so that's all about Big Red. They want to take his truck away still, huh?
Yes, I know.
What were your thoughts on and I saw you post on social media about this, and I got a chuckle out of it, and then I thought, oh, wait a minute. I mean, Chris is and his family, I mean, the left-wing corporate media reporting that one of his parents, I think they mentioned his father had passed away when it was actually the father of the Crown prosecutor. That was such shoddy reporting, I can't even believe.
It was absolutely terrible. And one thing I will say today, I was very happy to see the judge. She called it out in court.
Really?
Yeah, she did. Like she kind of admonished them, which was good to see. But you're right. I mean, we got there yesterday morning. The main Crown prosecutor, Mr. Radcliffe, sadly, his mother passed away. And so the assistant Crown was explaining that. And they didn't hear it all, and they just assumed that because Chris wasn't there, his parents or one of his parents had passed away.
Right. I want to make sure, I think you guys have frozen on the screen here, but I want to make sure you said assistant Crown and not clown. Oh, no, they're frozen. Actually, it's not bad because their facial expressions are fairly decent. It could be something worse. Let's wait and see if they unfreeze here. If you guys can still hear me, can you reboot or come out of the stream and then pop back in? That would be good. There you are.
Sorry, lost you there.
We've got a severe thunderstorm and a tornado warning, and so that might be part of what's going on this last few seconds.
Tornado warning.
Tornado warning.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy. So where were we? That's like in Ottawa. I'd never heard of that before. I worked there 15 or 16 years ago on one of the radio stations, and they had an earthquake in Ottawa, which I thought, like it was a 4 on the Richter scale or something. It was crazy. I didn't feel it when I was sleeping, but everybody was talking about it the next day. So you were talking about the media and the judge admonishing them in court.
Yes, and then so as the assistant Crown prosecutor was explaining what happened with Mr. Radcliffe, the media, Canadian press, I think it was, that originally reported that it was Chris Barber's parents that had passed away.
Yeah.
So, and we haven't seen a redaction yet, but I mean, you can't even get how do you not fact check that before you put it out to the world? And as I was saying just before we got cut off, so you can imagine Chris, he's from a small community, so his phone's blowing up yesterday with condolences. I mean, it's the most basic facts that these guys can't even get right. It's ridiculous.
I like the post his mom put out today, or was that yesterday?
Yeah, it was today, and I liked it too. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And there have been, you guys had letters on top of letters on top of letters from people all across the country. They were presented in court, right?
Yeah, some parts of them were. Parts of some of them were. So I know that Hannah, one of the lawyers on my legal team, went through 600 pages of letters of support. Wow. And I think out of those 600, they
chose about nine to highlight.
Yeah, 9 to highlight.
You've only got so much time to present that, I suppose, right? In the victim impact statements.
But interestingly enough, so today in court, and I think there might be some issues with this, but today in court, some of the Crown's submissions, their victim impact statements, did not even have me and Chris's names mentioned in them. Some of them were referring to Pat King. So they kind of got caught trying to slip some stuff in there that perhaps shouldn't have been submitted for our, for our case.
So not 9 of the 12 victim impact statements have nothing at all to do with either Chris or Tamara.
Only 3 of them had our names in it.
I just want to get an idea for all of the people who weren't there, and I'm one of them. I mean, I watched it, every single day, and we had our own thing going on here in Manitoba, like you guys know. Yeah. But I mean, day to day on the ground, Tamara, how much involvement? I know Chris was in there desperately trying to get these trucks moved out of the way. He was working with Ottawa police diligently to try and make that happen, to reduce the footprint. But and how much involvement did you have day to day with the people on the ground, aside from just high fives in the street? Was there any organizational capacity?
Well, it was definitely, the first few days, obviously, I was in a lot of meetings. We were dealing with GoFundMe, and then the lawyers came in. So I was stuck in a lot of those type of meetings. Chris and the captains were very focused on being on the ground and making sure that everything was okay there, the emergency lanes. Excuse me, because remember, in the first few days, there was constantly people coming and going. So we'd clear a lane, or they'd clear a lane, and then trucks would come in the middle of the night and to retake those positions, right? So, but I was able to get out quite a few times and meet people and talk to people. And it was just such a beautiful, I hate to call it a party, but I would call it like a celebration, because people were just so happy to be together again, and they felt pride in their country again, and they had hope. And it was the return of our humanity after a period where I would suggest I was afraid we'd lost all humanity.
The media did you no favors at the time. And Ray, you're a member, or were a member of media for years and years. You're a foreign correspondent. You did a lot of work with media. What was your impression of what they did?
Well,
why did they do it?
I don't want you to get me confused with the person who wrote the foreword to my book, Rodney Palmer. That's right. Yeah. He had a long history. I just started for the first time after several decades of teaching writing workshops around the continent, suddenly turning my attention to all of this once the Prime Minister invoked the Emergencies Act. And yes, I've been on different media platforms, but primarily since 2022. Okay.
So your impression of why the media did this, what led them to do this? Is it something that was coming from way above them? Was it just the way that their management focused on this? Because I saw when you guys came rolling through Winnipeg, Tamara, when we stopped at the Flying J there was a media guy on the ground, and he purposely pointed the camera away from that very large crowd that was waiting for you guys there to show a snowbank and maybe 2 people behind him. Well, there's a few people here waiting for the convoy, but there was over 1,000 people there in minus 35. So what's their motivation for this? Were they trying to suppress the energy that the convoy was building going across the country on purpose?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the like on the 22nd of January out in British Columbia, the CBC and a few other media outlets were reporting that there were trucks, kind of gridlocked and slow rolling and between the Vancouver, White Rock, U.S. border and the Fraser Valley. And it was being reported that they were doing this in protest of the condition of the highways in British Columbia. And then the following day said, oops, looks like they're going to Ottawa. So, and then there was a CBC, I think, report or CTV report in, I think, Salmon Arm. And they reported it very fairly, like the people who are protesting here, it's all very, very positive and respectful and so on. But then we learned through the Public Order Emergency Commission that there were people in the Prime Minister's office, PMO, Privy Council, people who were connected to Marco Mendocino, maybe Bill Blair, a few others, Christopher Freeland's office, who were deputy ministers and assistants. And they were talking about maybe we can frame this as January 6th North. Maybe, we can, there was a person, Caroline Williams' son, who was connected with, I think, Bill Blair, but I could be wrong. In any event, she was, through the week before the protesters arrived, they were spending a couple of days between the 25th to 27th of January 2022 trying different sound bites. I'm disgusted at the violence and racism of the protesters, even before they'd arrived. So they're kind of like saying, how does this sound, and emailing each other back and forth. So there was an effort, a collaboration that, there are people connected with different cabinet ministers who were saying, we've got some people in CTV or Global or whatever that can probably run with this, but don't do it too fast. We don't want to scare off the crazies. So all of that was going on before the first protesters were arriving with their trucks on the 28th, and the majority came in on the 29th of January 2022. So there was an effort to defame and smear the protesters in the minds of the citizens of Ottawa, especially, and across the country before the protests even arrived in Ottawa.
Alexa Lavoie was walking around doing person on the street interviews yesterday, and she talked to two people who were absolutely adamant that you, Tamara, are a racist, and Chris as well, and anybody else who was associated with the convoy. I live down there, and I took abuse for wearing a mask. And then this one guy happened to be from Alberta, sitting in a street cafe, having a bite to eat with his wife, it looked like. And he said, well, I'm ashamed of them as an Albertan. We should all be ashamed of what they did. I wish they had never done it. They should be thrown in jail. If you were never there, you never saw what was going on in the street, or maybe, you ran into a couple of rogue people down there who were not associated with the convoy, but could be mistaken for being a member of the convoy. How on earth can you say that, not ever having experienced it? I guess that's the media, and these people are just repeating what they heard in the media. Because anybody who was down there would never say that, would they? I mean, I'm sure there were some instances here and there, but I think that was pretty much self-policed, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the road captains and the truckers themselves said, after we recognized that we had to keep it peaceful. I mean, they mobilized and created block captains, and they had 24-hour people going around 24 hours to make sure Antifa wasn't going to be damaging any of the vehicles, and just to make sure that everything stayed peaceful.
Code of conduct you guys had too, right?
That's right. We did have a code of conduct. Yes, we created a registration form, and then I suggested that we do a code of conduct. And so the deal was, if you did not, the registration forms were designed so that we could try and get a count of the truckers that were involved. And then we put the code of conduct in with, the clause saying, you agree to be peaceful, you agree to this, so that they could be reimbursed. And if you didn't sign that code of conduct, agreeing to a peaceful, lawful protest, that you weren't going to get, you weren't going to get reimbursed. So unfortunately, the judge didn't put much weight to that because it wasn't actually entered as evidence. And she said today that only one of the officers involved had heard about it. So I don't know. I mean, if she's going to consider that or not, but
I want to ask Ray this question. I don't want to ask you this, Tamara, because I don't want you to think you're maybe jinxing yourself in front of all these people. But Ray, you were there in court the last couple of days. Were you obviously watching Judge McVeigh's face as all of the lawyers got up there presenting their cases? What's your impression of her impressions?
My impression of her impression is that she's trying to keep this pretty close to the chest. She's asking questions, sometimes disputing things, that the defense lawyers are saying, sometimes disputing things that the Crown lawyers are saying, sometimes agreeing and appreciating with things different lawyers on each side are saying. So
can you give us a couple of examples maybe of the disagreements that she would take up with the attorneys?
well, there would be comments about, well, it would kind of go back and forth. Like if the Crown said, this is unprecedented mischief that goes beyond the pale, and so 7 and 8 years respectively, then the judge would say, well, yes, but we've already heard as evidence that the accused did their best to cooperate with police, make sure that the vehicles went where the police instructed the vehicles to go, that they were trying to reduce the footprint by cooperating with the city of Ottawa, and that they got 102 vehicles, including 40 rigs that were, all the photographs of the license plates were taken by City of Ottawa staff. And so we have all of that as examples of goodwill. And then if, the lawyers for the defendants would point out all of this, constructive behavior, then the judge would say, yes, but there was, you overstayed your welcome at some point, and you didn't tell everyone to go home, or words to that effect. And so it was kind of like back and forth. So she'd be moderating the case of the defense lawyers, and then moderating the Crown's, so it's hard for me. I'm not someone who sits in many, courtrooms, so it's hard for me to know what, if that's typical conduct on the part of a judge, or, I mean, this is a very unusual case too, with the longest mischief trial in Canadian history. And I think too, another person, Roxanne Halverson, who on the Intrepid Viking Substack, has pointed out there was a previous case related to another Freedom Convoy protester, and I don't know the name of the person, but in that case, Perkins McVeigh said not guilty to whatever it was. And then it went to appeal, the Crown appealed, and it got overturned. And the person was found, I think, guilty. And so I think that I don't know how much this plays into, and I think it's unfair if it does, but if a judge has found people in the convoy, in other cases, not guilty, and then the Crown appeals, and the appeals court kind of almost reprimands the judge for not, finding them guilty. I don't know how much that kind of track record of being admonished by an appeals court factors into what happens in a case like this. I don't know how. So one of the questions I have is, how much does the judge also weigh what they can offer as a sentence, so that the Crown won't appeal the severity of this, or the lack of severity of this? I don't know. I've never talked about with anyone, but I wonder if that ends up being a factor, which maybe shouldn't be a factor, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
Tamara, what do you think? Is it going to be appealed either way, whatever it is?
I feel like perhaps the prosecution has set it up so that they can appeal. But I mean, that remains to be seen. And I mean, as far as if we're going to appeal, we got to wait and see what the sentence is going to be. And there is a lot to be said for just having this behind us too. So
yeah,
it's been a long 3.5 years.
If you get something that's like what Pat King got, let's say, I think he got a year and then 9 months time served, something like that.
Yeah,
he was under house arrest.
Yeah, 3 months. I think he was under house arrest. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was convicted on 5 counts. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay,
and the Crown is appealing, I think, either 1 or 2 of his acquittals, and I believe they're also appealing the sentence too, or something about the sentence. So yeah. So I mean, Pat's not done either. They're just going to drag this on and on and on and on and on.
What are your feelings about the forfeiture hearing, September the 12th? I guess Chris would be the better one to ask about that, but I know that you've talked to him a couple of times in the last few days.
I talk to him every day, and I think it's an obvious vindictive vendetta. I think it's petty. They have absolutely no reason other than that to try and take that truck. They're trying to take it to crush what it symbolizes.
Yeah, absolutely they are. And you guys symbolize a whole bunch. I'm not sure what it's been like for you on social media, because I know that, you know, you've had your ups and downs these past 3.5 years. And when your names come back into the spotlight like they have this past week, I'm sure the traffic starts going up on your social media. What's it been like the last 3 or 4 days? I've seen you posting a few things, and I'm kind of going, how does she have the time for this, to read all of these things? But I think that you probably try to read as many of these things as you can.
If you sit in court all day long, you're gonna, yeah. I mean, I don't get to read, you know, I can't obviously read them all. I have the Crown Prosecutor's ridiculous request of 7 years and all the sensation to thank them for about 3,000 new followers on X. You know?
Right,
So,
right.
The silver linings.
Yeah,
We were talking about silver linings. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
What about the Crown prosecutors? Have you seen them look nervous? And I understand that they're trying to play poker face as much as they possibly can. And I saw Greenspan out today in the media scrum, and he handled it extremely well. And Diane Magus as well. But the Crown, nobody's talking about the Crown prosecutors, and we don't know who they are. Are they younger? Are they older? Are they more experienced people? Did they look nervous today? Because they're presenting a bullshit case, let's be honest. I mean, that's I said that, by the way, just in case there's anybody watching from CSIS or any other ridiculous agency. That was me who said that. So how could they actually?
You don't have any objections to bulls, though. This is not like an anti-bull comment.
No. I think bulls are absolutely necessary. You know, we need steak and milk. I'm just wondering how these people can actually present this case, asking for 7 and 8 years, and be able to look at themselves in the mirror. You know what I mean?
Myself that all the time. I don't know. But you know, as terrible as it sounds, they have a job to do. And I don't know how I could not work in an industry where my job was literally to go into a courtroom and try and twist people's words and say terrible things about them that aren't true. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what is going through their heads. And I think that's just it. They got a job to do. And they're going to do it. And it's just unfortunate at the way the system is set up that way. I mean, if anyone in this country anymore thinks that you are innocent until proven guilty, I'm sorry, you're sadly mistaken. You know, it's completely the reverse. It's and it's really tough to sit in there some days and listen to some of the things that they say about me, because that's not who I am. You know, like to try and paint both me and Chris. I mean, we're like middle class, everyday, nobody's from nowhere. That's what I posted today.
I know.
So
I saw you say that. You know, it's funny. You say that, right? And you and I are friends, and I've gotten to know you a little bit in the last little while. And, you know, I think you're one of the more genuine people that I've met. You too, Ray, for that matter. You know, for people to say things like that about you, it makes my blood boil. And I wish everybody had the chance to meet you, just sit down and talk to you for a few minutes. I don't know how you have the patience, you know, whenever you're at a gathering like that, just to sit down and be the center of attention like that. As you say, you're no one from nowhere, and I don't think that's true. But I mean, how have you managed to handle this sudden notoriety in the past 3 years? It's got to be taxing.
Well, I mean, it can be exhausting, but, you know, like, I'm so blessed, and Chris will tell you the same thing. You know, we get to meet Canadians, we hear from Canadians, we get to have actual conversations with them and hear how this changed their life for the better. Or, I mean, you know, all the suicides that were prevented. Shadoe, I've had thousands, just me, tell me that they were planning to kill themselves until this happened. You know, the people that got their jobs back, the people that got to go to see their parents in the hospital or their grandparents in a long-term care home. I mean, the gratitude from Canadians. And I think we have a lot of support, and I think a lot of them recognize what we're going through and they appreciate it. And so it is like today is a prime example. Of course, at the end, when we find out the sentencing isn't for another 2.5 months, it's extremely disappointing. You know, I have my moment and I get over it. This is just how it goes. And Chris and I have always said, we just got to roll with the punches and deal with things as they come. And I'm just not a bitter person. I mean, I choose to not be a bitter person. I choose to see the silver linings.
Yeah. And I was saying to Tamara the other day that, go and see the musical Les Miserables. Or if you want to, if you have a lot more time, read the book by Victor Hugo. But it's all about Jean Valjean is this person who, under dire circumstances, had to steal some bakery goods, some bread, and a variety of other things, and ended up in prison and escaped. And then the police inspector Javert, I think in the book, hounds and pursues him for several decades. And Javert's position in Les Miserables is that the state cannot be wrong. And if you have someone who believes that the government never makes a mistake, the government is never in error. So any edict, any public health order, any decision made by the state, any decree by the cabinet, any emergency act invoked by a government would all in the perspective of someone who's like Javert in Victor Hugo's novel and musical, will then always believe that, well, the state can't be wrong. And I believe that there are people who think like that in Canada, maybe who are part of the Crown, but that view is alive. We need to.
You mean like just in the general public?
I think that there are some people who believe that the state...
The government would never lie to us.
The government would never lie. The media would never lie. And so you have, half the population 3 years later believing to this day that, I've been told, anecdotally by friends out in Vancouver and other places, that they believe that all of the protesters in the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa were Nazis, all had Nazi flags or other things like that. And or that they all went there to burn down apartment buildings and commit arson. And so there are these, people, and I've had even people who told me straight out that they're lazy, like that they don't have the time to go and read a book like I've written. They just want the Coles notes. And so that's for where we're at. People get bowled over by a frightening, catastrophizing, alarmist story. They get caught up in their emotional moment, and then they're kind of there again. It's like every time you mention the Freedom Convoy, it's the 29th of January 2022, or it's the 14th of February 2022, and they're right back there with that emotion, and then everything else that they can think about somehow goes out the window because they're stuck in that emotional space again and can't detach and analyze or reflect on it.
It's interesting when you present a fact or a series of facts to some people regarding anything really that's happened in the past 5 years. You can show them. You can show them the document. You can bring the receipts. You can say, look, it didn't happen like that. And they still refuse to admit it. Like if you show a picture of Tamara Lich, somebody is going to go, I love her. Or, the opposite would happen, right? Where somebody goes, she's a Nazi. Speaking of Nazis, that one guy who had the Nazi flag, did we ever sort that out? Do we know who he was? I think Brendan Miller got in trouble for that at the Public Order Emergency Commission, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He thought it was somebody else and he was mistaken. And so that did cause a little bit of problems. It's actually funny that you mention it because I ran into a gentleman as we were leaving court today who actually gave me some names of the people that were involved in that and how that all came to be. So anyways, I didn't have a lot of time, but I got his information, so I'm going to talk to him. And I think if it pans out and it's true, it's going to be quite a sensational story. So, but I don't want to say too much, just in, what I've learned is not to say anything until you have the proof right in your hands.
That's a very wise choice that you've just made there. But is it juicy? I mean, you were alluding to the fact that it might be a pretty juicy piece of information.
Yeah. I'll get that corroborated, and maybe I'll have to come on your show and fill you in.
I'd love to see that. So you guys have to go back. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, in the meantime, you have to go back and roll the camera to Alexa Lavoie with Rebel News and her investigative piece regarding the angle that the photo of the three gentlemen that were holding the Nazi flag in the Chateau Laurier, that the photo had to be taken from a secure location that the general public wouldn't have access to down near the canal and so on. And so, we know that, and then it also, things were connected to somebody connected to Jagmeet Singh and Paul Martin's former, I think, photographer. So
yeah.
so there's a number of coincidences, and I'm not a coincidence theorist. So
Right.
I think often things pan out in ways that can be shocking.
Tamara, you've been to Ottawa a lot.
More than I ever thought I would be.
In the last 3.5 years. What's it like for you going back every time? Is it like, oh my God? Or are there some good things about it?
I love Ottawa. I love Ottawa. It is a bit more challenging to be here because what I find is people here either love me or hate me. But I mean, a prime example, a lot of people, when I walked out of my lawyer's office on Tuesday, I had one old man walk by me and he's like, "You're still free." But all the interactions I've had, even walking down the street today, people are like, "Good luck today. Go get them. We're thinking about you." So, and that was the same with when we were here. I mean, there was a lot of people on the ground and a lot of people that supported us. I mean, I ran into a couple on Sir John A. Parkway one evening. And, if you were here and you saw somebody wearing a mask, it was unusual. So we would either assume that they were Antifa or federal government employees. And so I came across this Muslim couple, and they were in the apartment block across the street. And they came down completely masked, scarves, everything, because they were afraid of being identified. But one of them had already lost you'd been placed on leave because of the vaccine mandate. And they were going down every day, taking firewood, blankets, water. And so this was we had a lot of federal government employees that were supporting us too. So, I mean, I love the city. I have great memories here. I mean, obviously this was kind of the epicenter of, where my life completely changed. But it also changed not just Canada, but it changed the world. There's a couple sitting downstairs right now from Switzerland that were just telling us about the convoys in Europe that they recognized me, which I just thought was so strange. But, so it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't spend a lot of time walking around downtown or doing anything like that. I stick pretty close to inside unless I'm outside of the red zone. But I love coming here. It's a beautiful drive. It's a beautiful city.
Wait a minute. You just said the red zone. Like, does that still exist?
I'm not allowed in the red zone. I still have a bail condition saying I'm not allowed in the red zone. Yes.
You still have conditions?
Yeah, all of them. The only one that was dropped was my social media condition.
Oh my God. This is a question.
The first thing I said to my lawyer today. I'm like, October? Like, I still have 2.5 more months to go, wow.
That's outrageous. Question for both of you. And Ray, you and I talked about this at lunch last weekend. Are you getting the sense that public sentiment is shifting in favor of logic and common sense?
Okay, so here's one way of answering that. The Federal Conservative Party has been, let me say, cautious to speak a lot about the convoy. I mean, there's certainly been people, Leslyn Lewis, Dean Allison, numbers of other people, Pierre Poilievre at the time that the convoy was happening, a number of MPs getting photos with select groups of people in a photo. But it's been sparse. But when the Crown asked for the 7 and 8 years, Pierre Poilievre and a dozen or more Conservative MPs on their social media, Michelle Rempel and Andrew Lawton.
Lawton's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that the Conservative Party wouldn't be going out and saying this is outrageous or barbaric or disproportionate if they thought, whoa, half the people who vote for us are going to think it's great. I think that they have their own reactions personally, but they also do a little bit of, they have a kind of a spidey sense about whether or not their base would support them saying that. And I think because they went ahead and said, this is outrageous, that's a good sign. It means that there's a lot of people that still remember that there's something like proportional sentencing and that there's a reason why. I mean, sometimes I cynically think the surprise is that the Crown didn't ask for 25 years in life, but I think that because the 7 and 8 years got some question and some pushback among even mainstream politicians, that's a good thing. So I think it is a sign that there's more people that are saying, what is this? This is the longest mischief trial. And I think bit by bit, I mean, there's the hardcore, I mean, there's the liberal base, the people that were pounding the pavement for Mark Carney and elbows up in the last campaign that will never consider anything about, what really happened besides what the media told them, the Russian agents and whatever else. However, I think that there is a middle group, which is like 20%, 25%, whatever in the population that could over time be persuaded once they give themselves permission to get some emotional distance from their initial first reactions to the scandalous, shocking news that they got 24/7 for 3 weeks in a row back in the day.
Tamara, what about you? Have you had anybody ever walk up to you and say, I was so wrong about you? Has that ever happened?
Yes. Yeah, it has happened. And actually, like as Ray was just saying, when the news came out from the Crown prosecutors' written submissions on their request for sentencing, I've seen a lot and heard from a lot of people that have said just that. I mean, liberal, hardcore liberal people that are kind of saying, wait a minute, I didn't like what they did. They shouldn't have been here. I don't like these people, but this seems like this is not a normal request for sentencing in a mischief. No mischiefs go to trial. Stephen Guilbeault is a convicted criminal for mischief, and he probably got a $200 fine, if that, and that was it, right? I mean,
I remember the orange jumpsuit picture of him coming down from the CN Tower there.
Yeah.
I mean, face crazy. Like, you've seen that picture. There's a young lady called Brandy Lynn Barron. I'm sure you guys have read this post on Facebook. We've talked about Chris a little bit, Chris Barber, in this conversation, but seeing as how he's not here, I would like to read this. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't know Chris so well, like I know you guys a little bit better. He always struck me as kind of a shy, more quiet guy. Would you say that about him? Like, if you don't know him, Tamara, if you just meeting him, quiet?
Well,
At first.
Maybe if you first meet him, but I mean, I find him to be very friendly. He's got a great sense of humor. I think he's very outgoing, and I think he goes out of his way to make people feel comfortable in his presence, So
yeah. Well, the only reason I would say that is because, last year in Swift Current, when I met him, I think he was more sizing me up than anything. Who's this guy? What's he all about? And then after that, he warmed up pretty quick. But I read this and I couldn't even believe, this is just from a random person. Brandy says, I've kept quiet long enough. There's been a lot of noise about Chris Barber, most of it from people who have never actually met him. As a business owner, I've tried to stay neutral and professional, but it genuinely pisses me off when I hear people tearing him down like he's some kind of villain. That's not the man I know. Chris isn't just a public figure to me. He's a real human being with a heart of gold.
Yes.
She goes on to say, my sister and Chris grew up together, and years ago when my world was falling apart, he showed up in a way I'll never forget. When my mom was dying of terminal bone cancer, I had to reduce my work hours to care for her. And then after she passed, I was left grieving, maxed out on credit cards, stuck in a legal fight with our stepdad over what little she had left us. We couldn't even afford a proper headstone. It was heartbreaking. And then one day, by pure chance, my sister ran into Chris, told him what we were going through. He knew my mom. He knew our stepdad. And without hesitation, he offered to pay for the biggest, most beautiful headstone, a true memorial for our mom. He didn't want anything in return, no publicity, no payback, just compassion. That gesture meant more to us than he probably even knows. So when I hear people tearing him apart, reducing him to headlines and controversy, I can't stay silent anymore. Agree or disagree with the Freedom Convoy, that's your right, but don't act like you know who Chris Barber is if you've never sat across from him or felt the weight of his kindness during the hardest moments of your life. Agree or disagree with his politics, that's your right, but don't pretend you know this man. I do, and I'll stand by him, because when I was at my lowest, Chris Barber stood by me and my family and expected nothing in return, and that's who he truly is.
That is who he is. He's very compassionate. He doesn't want, I can tell you in the 3.5 years that I've known him, he's helped more people than you guys will ever know. Because he doesn't go out to do it to seek credit, right? And he has. I've watched him do it. And that is who he is. He cares about people. I think it's, well, I mean, we were both raised in Saskatchewan, and I've said this before, you know, there's a certain, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere in Canada, but where we grew up in Saskatchewan, there's a certain community. I mean, there's times where we had to look after each other. You know, we did have to come together and support each other. And that's how we were raised, you know, helping the people that needed it the most.
Love your community, love your country. Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's the tragedy of what's been happening with this trial and others in the convoy, and there's probably other examples in Canadian history, is if we end up creating a society where the politicians and the media team up like a tag team wrestling show, and then put someone in their crosshairs and then bash away in the corner of the ring and get everyone to be alarmed and disgusted with whoever's being scapegoated, then it'll be someone else next time, not Tamara and Chris. It'll be somebody else, and it might be you or your group of people. You know, it seems like that way we give ourselves permission in society to take turns picking on somebody until we've kind of made ourselves feel virtuous somehow by beating someone up and bullying them, and then going off after a little bit of a respite, and then picking on someone else because we have heightened anxiety or whatever's going on in the country. Yeah. You know, I mean, the numbers of people who are testifying at the Public Order Emergency Commission seem to be people who have a long suit in catastrophizing. You know, it's kind of like the story that they got raised on as children was Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And so they're kind of very quickly get into that way of going, oh my God, the protesters in the convoy are using the children as human shields, as Natalie Drouin, the deputy clerk of the Privy Council, alarmistly said, you know, like, and you know,
I think that came up again these last couple of.
I still hear that we were using children as human shields.
Yeah. I heard that too just this past couple of days.
Yeah.
Somebody said that. I went, what? No, that didn't happen. There was none of that going on. I mean, you see, this is the thing, you know, all this misinformation, it lives on, even when we think it's long over, and the truth will finally prevail, right? I mean, and the delicate sensibilities, as you were pointing out, Ray, of these woke Canadians continue on. I mean, a guy got kicked off a plane in Nova Scotia, Air Canada flight in Nova Scotia yesterday for wearing a Trudeau blackface shirt. Apparently, a couple of the cabin staff found that offensive and they kicked him off because he wouldn't take the shirt off. And we got a Christian singer who's licensed to play at a park. I'm not sure which one, a national park in Canada, was revoked because of the danger that he brought. He's a Christian singer. Like, what danger does he bring?
But danger now in Canada, Shadoe, equates to feelings. We are no longer run by logic and reason. And we saw that. We've seen that in witnesses. We heard that even from Steve Bell himself, the former interim chief of police. You know, he had to admit there was no violence. It just felt violent. Yeah. And I mean, this is a huge problem.
Yeah. Well,
that's what the Rouleau Commission found was the violence, in quotes, that happened was not criminal violence. It was not physical violence. Nobody was found to have punched anybody in the jaw or kicked anybody in the shins. The violence was, to quote Rouleau, psychological violence. So this is now really lowering the bar for any future government in our country that can say, ooh, there's some people feeling psychological violence. They're upset. Yeah, they're upset because this person or that group is doing something. And now we're going to invoke the Emergencies Act because just because if we don't, there might be a threat.
Whatever happened to sticks and stones will break my bones, but names, do I even have to finish it?
Will ever hurt me?
Everybody knows. Yeah. What's next, Tamara? Like, when you're finally done with this, finally, and, you know, I mean, pending an appeal, let's just say the sentencing comes down and both sides are satisfied with this and there's no appeal. What next? You're just going to sit back and play some rock and roll? I mean, you rocked it at the Ostrich Farm.
Well, thank you. That was so much fun. What a great time. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I it's really hard to even think about it until I just get this this part done, like, I hope to be playing lots of music. We do have some shows. We're going to go over to London and play at Tommy's Rally here on September the 13th. We're going to be in Calgary also in September for Rebel News's anniversary party. We're going to play for that. So I love playing music. I love that I have, like a skill that I can use that can help other people. And so hopefully we can keep doing that. But, I definitely am very interested in what's happening out west, obviously, with the Alberta independence movement. So I'd like to get involved in that in some way and just see what I can do to help. I mean,
Careful.
I'll have to get a resume dusted off, but,
Right.
I think that is fairly public.
do you think that has a chance? I mean, I was through there a couple of weeks ago. I stopped at Chris Scott's Whistle Stop Cafe there in Mirror, and man, that place is, first of all, there's a painting of you. I think Haka Oja Studios did that. It's from the back, Freedom, you and the trucks in front of you coming at. But it's a monument to independence. I felt as though, I described this last week, I felt as though I was in a different country. When you're in Quebec, you feel like you're in a different country because everybody's speaking French and it just seems so foreign.
Yeah.
Well, being in that cafe, as crazy as this sounds, a lot of cowboy hats, a lot of vests, a lot of chaps, they were coming in. And I just went, I'm in a different world. I'm in a different space here. This does not seem like Canada. It felt good though, as opposed to the Quebec version. Never felt good to me. I don't know why that is.
You just haven't had enough poutine, Shadoe.
Right.
That's the problem.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I don't speak French so well. But I mean, in Alberta, it was like, wow, man, this is cool. Do you think that's got a chance, you guys?
I do. I think it's got some legs. I think as long as it's done properly and, they get enough people. I love that they're doing all these town halls and going out and like, that's the thing. We just need to educate people on. And the biggest question that you'll hear asked all the time is if Alberta wasn't in Confederation right now and they offered us what we're getting, and not just Alberta, but Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the Western provinces. I mean, would we join? Would we join Confederation now if they just said, we're going to take billions of your dollars every year. We're not going to give you anything back. We're going to shut down your industry. We're going to call you a bunch of terrible names and treat you like you don't matter. We would have to be crazy to sign on to that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And, I think I've been hearing from people that the narrative in Alberta has changed somewhat from why should we how is it like, why should we leave to why should we stay, like you point out?
Yes.
Right. And more and more
when
people
Preston
are asking
Manning
that question.
started the Reform Party, his mantra, the tagline that they used was "The West wants in," and now that's sort of flipped to "The West wants out."
Yeah.
So.
Ray, what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think so many things are up in the air. It depends. A lot depends on. I mean, just like with Quebec separation, a lot depends on what the federal government is doing.
Yes.
Because if the federal government does things that a lot of Albertans are suddenly feeling pleasantly surprised by, then that might tamp down the urge to want out.
Yeah.
But if the federal government, reminds Albertans we don't want any pipelines forever. The world is we're gonna all have EVs by 2035 or whatever, and carry on with certain agendas. And also it depends a lot on, well, who are the figures that are leading the Alberta independence movement, and what is their appeal to these citizens of Alberta? All of those kind of things are hard to know. I mean, like in Quebec, it was René Lévesque was a catalyst for people in a way that maybe somebody else wouldn't have been. So often it comes down to personalities, fortunately or unfortunately, and politics is emotional as well as thoughtful. And so a lot of things can go right or well or not well, depending on also how the media, how the mainstream media covers it. I imagine that the CBC and the CTV and Global News wouldn't be especially pro-Alberta independence. And so how much would a media campaign to try to wound the independence movement in Alberta, how successful or unsuccessful would that be?
They're going to spend millions, man.
Yeah.
Millions. This book, Unjustified, I've been flipping through it the last few days. I haven't had so much time to read, and I was reading the foreword earlier, and that's how I got you and Rodney Palmer mixed up. I apologize, Ray. I am going to get to this. You guys can pick this up. It's available online. Unjustified by Ray McGinnis. Tamara, you driving back?
Yeah, we're gonna head out first thing in the morning. So we'll be in Winnipeg. Maybe we'll see you in a couple days.
Okay, well, text me. Let me know what your plans are, and we can do something. I know you got to get your dog and everything.
That's it. Yeah, I just got to get my dog, and after that, I'm good to go. But I'm gonna slip out. I didn't mean to hijack your interview. I just said to Ray I should photobomb your interview, so I'm gonna let you guys get to it. And
yeah, he suggested you might be popping in for a few minutes here. You've been the whole hour.
Yeah, I know. I feel terrible.
This is the day of the second day of the sentencing hearing, so I think it's appropriate that you get to be here.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you about this guy's book, because here's what happened. I bought the book, or he sent me the book, and I read it in one day. And what I would read some, and then I'd have to get up and cook lunch or do dishes. So I actually bought the audiobook, so I would read as much as I can, and it was so good. Then I'd listen to the audiobook for, it's really well done. I'm going to tell you, have I ever told you how I met this man?
Nope.
It's a great story, and I'll finish on this. I was at the POEC one day, and I was just walking outside to go on a quick break in the middle of the proceedings, and this gentleman walks up to me with these really strange glasses, like a circle and a square. So I never forgot them. Anyways, I'm walking out. I'm walking back in. He's walking back out, and he hands me like $20, I think it was. And he's like, I can't believe you have to sit through this every day. Go buy yourself a drink.
And ever since then, you've been buds?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And I just can't thank Ray enough for all the writing that he's done, the covering of the Coots boys. Ray has just gone above and beyond to just tell the truth, and it's appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
yeah, you guys.
Love you guys. I will text you on the way home.
Okay, make sure you do. Ray, Tamara, thank you for popping on tonight. Ray, I want to get you back on when she's not around.
Okay. Thanks so much. I'm flying back from Ottawa. I'm not driving to Vancouver.
Okay. I guess I won't be seeing you for a while then.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye for now. Well, that was a nice surprise, seeing Tamara on with Ray McGinnis tonight. Guys, don't forget to like and share this. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can, whatever platform you happen to be watching on. I do have a couple of stories that I want to get to tonight, but I haven't got a lot of time. And the reason for that is because we have a documentary to play for you in the extension tonight for the All Access Nighthawks at ShadowDavis.com. This is a Jay Dyer documentary. It's called 2020. It's about an hour and 45 minutes long. So you guys get your popcorn ready. This goes deep, way back in history. And then they're going to bring us all the way to where we are today and what's happened and who's running the show. Ultimately, according to historical fact. There is one thing that I wanted to get up here, and that is that Danielle Smith was on the CBC. And this is a big thing because it involves a pipeline. Danielle Smith was on the CBC talking to the bald-headed guy. I forget his name. Anyway, she was talking about this pipeline going through. Doug Ford and she were talking about this the other day during the First Minister's meeting. And here she is on the CBC.
From Alberta, you got to go through Saskatchewan. Scott Moe was there, but there's Manitoba between Saskatchewan and Ontario, and Wab Kinew was not there for this today. What's the deal?
I've been so happy with how constructive Premier Kinew has been in talking about wanting to build out this port-to-port-to-port economic corridor is what we're talking about, that would go from about somewhere around Port of Prince Rupert all the way through to Port of Churchill or thereabouts. And one of the things that we're watching as Manitoba goes forward is they're looking at new ways of engaging Indigenous partners. I think that that's one of the aspects that Premier Kinew wants to do, is to get those different mechanisms in place. We have a different way of engaging with Indigenous partners through our Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, where we underwrite loan guarantees for them to purchase into an equity stake. But I think that once he's a little bit more advanced on that, we'll be able to have the conversation with him. But I think he's been very positive about the idea of having an economic corridor and have all types of projects in there, including pipelines.
Danielle probably hasn't seen this article from the Winnipeg Sun. Kinew walks away from pipeline deal. Could be worth millions, even billions to the province of Manitoba. But no, Wab Kinew chose not to sign a new interprovincial trade agreement unveiled Tuesday by Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, citing the need for Indigenous consensus before moving forward with major infrastructure projects. The MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, signed during the Council of the Federation meeting in Huntsville, commits the three provinces to collaborate on the construction of new pipelines, rail lines, trade infrastructure. The goal is to expand market access for Canadian oil, gas, critical minerals, while reducing reliance on foreign trade partners. Kinew's absence from the agreement raises questions, especially given Manitoba's geographic location as a natural link in any east-west corridor. However, in a public statement, the Premier said Manitoba's decision not to participate was intentional. Kinew emphasized the need for consensus from Indigenous stakeholders before proceeding with major infrastructure projects. Manitoba previously signed a separate MOU with Saskatchewan and the Arctic Gateway Group. That is actually not necessary. It's not necessary. You can go ahead and do it. You can enrich the entire province, but you won't, because you're ideologically opposed to pipelines. And the same with David Eby. If this pipeline had to run through British Columbia, he'd come up with an excuse. You can bet. Scott Moe, Danielle Smith, they're conservatives. Doug Ford, one fruit fly. One. Still buzzing around in here. All the others are dead in that glass of dishwashing liquid and cranberry juice. But this one, what is one fruit fly smarter than the others? I don't understand. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Doug Ford, we don't know what he is. I think he's a liberal masquerading as a conservative, but he does come up with some decent decisions once in a blue moon. But Wab Kinew, I don't think he's ever going to let this happen, which is sad, because we need something like this in this country, or it's not going to be a country anymore. Then again, Manitoba, a have-not province, can stand in the way of this. Alberta might just say, and Saskatchewan too, for that matter, they might just say, sorry, man, we got to leave. We can't get this guy on board. We can't get that guy on board. We got to go. And then it'll be bye-bye Canada. All right, that's it for the show tonight, you guys. Back on Monday night on the social media part of the show for another Shadoe at Night live stream. The Shadoe at Night merch store will be opening on the website, shadoedavis.com, in the next couple of days. And once it's up and running, I'll let you guys know on social media that you can go and purchase hoodies or T-shirts or tank tops for the ladies, and coffee mugs, big 20 ounces. And what else have I got? Hats in there. We're going to do the embroidered kind this time as well. So yeah, that'll be available for you in the next 48 hours at shadoedavis.com, shadoedavis.com. And while you're there, you might consider becoming a member and gaining access to all of the extra content we provide every weeknight on the extension. And tonight we've got a doozy for you. So we're going to be right back there in just a couple of minutes with you guys. For the rest of you, I love you all and I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.